Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's just your amateur Canadian here, coming to you from beautiful Vancouver Island. My name is Mace, and if you're new here, welcome. The European Union. I feel like it'll be good to have a video explaining a little bit more, a little bit deeper than kind of my surface level understanding of the European Union. I do think it would be, when I think about it, it wouldn't really. See, Canada and the United States are so large, but I love the idea that you can travel to these different countries without having to go through the rigmarole of like going through customs and going through, right? Like do the whole immigration and customs thing. You can just drive over to the next country. I think that's great. I think that's amazing. I assume there's benefits and disadvantages to the union, but the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. Let's get into the video and see how the video explains it to us. And yeah, hope you're doing amazing. I'm doing great. Let's do it.
Where is the European Union? Obviously here somewhere, but much like the European continent itself, which has an unclear boundary, the European Union also has some fuzzy edges to it. To start, the official members of the European Union are...
Why do I know this? But there's 27, right? 27 countries in the EU.
In decreasing order of population, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, Italy, Spain, Poland, Romania,
And like as you get lower, I assume, and the less population, like you kind of have less influence. So did he start off with Germany? So Germany probably has the most influence, or if not, Germany, France.
Are in decreasing order of population, Germany, France, the United Kingdom.
Oh, this is before Brexit? I guess this video came out before Brexit because the United Kingdom is not an EU member anymore.
Italy, Spain, Poland, Romania, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Greece, Belgium, Portugal, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Sweden, Austria, Bulgaria, Denmark, Slovakia, Finland, Ireland, Croatia, Lithuania, Latvia, Slovenia, Estonia, Cyprus, Luxembourg, and Malta. The edges of the EU will probably continue to expand further out as there are other countries in various stages of trying to become a member. How the EU works is hideously complicated and a story for another time, but for this video you need know only 3 things.
Hideously complicated.
First, countries pay membership dues, and second, vote on the laws they all must follow.
Okay, so you pay membership dues, you vote on laws.
And third, citizens of member countries are automatically European Union citizens as well. This last means that if you're a citizen of any of these countries, you are free to live and work and retire in any of the others, which is nice, especially if you think your country is too big or too small or too hot or too cold. The European Union gives you options. By the way, did you notice how all 3 of these statements have asterisks attached to this unhelpful footnote? Well, get used to it. Europe loves asterisks that add exceptions to complicated agreements. These 3, for example, point us towards the first bit of border fuzziness with Norway, Iceland, and Little Liechtenstein, none of which are in the European Union, but if you're an EU citizen, you can live in these countries, and Norwegians, Icelanders, or Liechtensteiners can live in yours. Why? In exchange for freedom of movement of people, they have to pay membership fees to the European Union, even though they aren't a part of it, and thus don't get a say in its laws that they still have to follow. This arrangement is the European Economic Area, and it sounds like a terrible deal were it not for that asterisk which grants EEA but not E.
So what type of laws do they pass? And I know that's a lot of the rhetoric around Brexit, right? Was like, we don't want to be being governed by these people in Brussels, and like they're making laws and we have no say in it, right? Like that's the rhetoric, or at least the argument that was sort of made to leave, right? To leave the EU.
EU members a pass on some areas of law, notably farming and fishing, something a country like, say, Iceland might care quite a lot about running themselves. Between the European Union and the European Economic Area, the continent looks mostly covered, with the notable exception of Switzerland, who remains neutral and fiercely independent, except for her participation in the Schengen Area. If you're from a country that keeps her borders extremely clean and or well patrolled, the Schengen Area is a bit mind-blowing because it's an agreement between countries to take a meh approach to borders. In the Schengen Area, international boundaries look like this. No border officers or passport checks of any kind. You can walk from Lisbon to Tallinn without identification or the need to answer the question business or pleasure. For Switzerland, being part of Schengen but not part of the European Union means that non-Swiss can check in any time they like, but they can never stay. This kumbaya approach to borders isn't appreciated by everyone in the EU, most loudly the United Kingdom and Ireland, who argue that islands are different. Thus, to get onto these fair isles, you'll need a passport and a good reason. Britannia's reluctance to get fully involved with the EU.
It's interesting, some of the commentary here about the UK, considering this is before they left, but you can kind of see some of the grievance already being described, or grievances that the UK had.
Brings us to the next topic, money. The European Union has its own fancy currency, the euro, used by the majority but not all of the European Union members. This economic union is called the Eurozone, and to join, a country must first reach certain financial goals. And lying about reaching those goals is certainly not something anyone would do. Most of the non-Eurozone members, when they meet the goals, will ditch their local currency in favor of the euro. But 3 of them, Denmark, Sweden, and of course the United Kingdom, have asterisks attached to the euro section of the treaty, giving them a permanent opt-out. And weirdly, 4 tiny European countries, Andorra, San Marino, Monaco, and Vatican City, have an asterisk giving them the exact reverse, the right to print and use euros as their money despite not being in the European Union at all. So that's the big picture. There's the EU, which makes all the rules, the Eurozone inside of it with a common currency, the European Economic Area outside of it where people can move freely, and the selective Schengen for countries that think borders just aren't worth the hassle. As you can see, there's some strange overlap with these borders, but we're not done talking about complications by a long shot. There
must be a lot of complications also. I'm just thinking for police, like police forces and stuff like that. I used to work for the police, and usually the people that are getting investigated are like in our area, and I'm just thinking for like searches, and must make policing, maybe add some difficulty to policing, maybe it doesn't, maybe it makes it easier, I don't know. Depends how good information sharing is, I guess.
Again, because empire. So Portugal and Spain have islands from their colonial days that they've never parted with. These are the Madeira and Canary Islands off the coast of Africa, and the Azores well into the Atlantic. Because these islands are Spanish and Portuguese, they're part of the European Union as well. Adding a few islands to the EU's borders isn't a big deal until you consider France, the queen of not letting go. She still holds on to a bunch of islands in the Caribbean, Reunion off the coast of Madagascar, and French Guiana in South America. As far as France is concerned, these are France too, which single-handedly extends the edge-to-edge distance of the European Union across a third of the Earth's circumference. Collectively, these bits of France, Spain, and Portugal are called the outermost regions, and they're the result of the simple answer to empire: just
the outermost regions.
Keep it. On the other hand, there's the United Kingdom, the master of maintaining complicated relationships with her quasi-former lands, and she's by no means alone in this on such an empire-happy continent. The Netherlands and Denmark and France, again, all have what the European Union calls overseas territories. They're not part of the European Union, instead they're a bottomless well of asterisks due to their complicated relationships with both the European Union and their associated countries, which makes it hard to say anything meaningful about them as a group, but in general, European Union law doesn't apply.
So the EU basically is there and more or less works because of geography. Like, it just wouldn't work in North America, I don't think, like a similar
apply to these places, though in general the
agreement.
People who live there are European Union citizens because in general they have the citizenship of their associated country, so in general they can live anywhere in the EU they want, but in general other European Union citizens can't freely move to these territories, which makes these places a weird semi-permeable membrane of the European Union proper, and the final part we're going to talk about in detail, even though there are still many more one-off asterisks you might stumble upon, such as the Isle of Man, or those Spanish cities in North Africa, or Gibraltar, who pretends to be part of southwest England sometimes, or that region in Greece where it's totally legal to ban women, or Saba and friends who are part of the Netherlands and
wait, a place in Greece where it's totally legal to ban women? I'm gonna have to look into that.
So should be part of the EU but aren't, or the Faroe Islands, upon which while citizens of Denmark live, they lose their EU citizenship, and on it goes. These asterisks almost never end, but this video must.
Damn. So the European Union is eternally complicated. Let me know down below, do you live in the EU? What are your thoughts on it? Like, what are the benefits? What are the negatives? And yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. For the algo, right? For Mr. Gritham. Yeah, it's a whole rigmarole leaving Canada, right? I mean, we have a good passport. Like, there's no doubt. We have an excellent passport that affords us a lot of privilege around the world. I mean, places where you can travel and you don't need to get a visa, or you don't need to get a visa before you get there, at least. So we're pretty lucky that way, but you still have to go to immigration and customs and the whole thing, right? It's still a lot of work, and we're predominantly flying places, right? So like the land border with the States, we'll drive over often. But if we're not going to the United States, we're driving, right? We're not going to drive to Mexico. We're not going to drive to Europe. So, and it's a whole process. Even getting across the U.S. border is a pain in the butt. It can take forever, depending on how busy it is. Like, it can be just painful getting across the border. And then the U.S. border agents, they can be shitty, and so can the Canadian ones. And who wants to go to the States right now anyways with the president, and who knows what their immigration people are going to do. They're going to look into your history and try to get you, probably, because Trump's directives on like how strict they are being with immigration. I think his whole anti-immigration thing, and all the rhetoric towards annexing Canada and everything that's been going on, has been kind of crazy. But it was an interesting video. A lot to take in, obviously. I still don't really understand I understand the EU slightly more than I did. The 27 member states, all the overseas territories, the semi-permeable outermost regions, the outermost regions. I thought that was, like he said, there's a lot of gray, there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of asterisks. A lot of asterisks is